Have you ever noticed this strange thing about life? The harder we chase something, the more it seems to run away. The tighter we grip, the more it slips through our fingers. And yet, when we stop trying so hard, when we finally exhale and loosen our grip, life begins to respond, not with chaos, but with clarity. This is the quiet paradox of letting go. Now let's be clear. Letting go is not about giving up. It's not about abandoning your dreams, walking away from effort, or pretending you don't care. Letting go, true letting go, is a shift in how you relate to life. It's moving from control to cooperation, from pressure to presence, from fear to trust. And that shift, it changes everything. We live in a world that constantly tells us to take charge, hustle harder, make it happen. But what if that very mindset, so rooted in control and force, is the thing keeping us stuck? What if life doesn't respond to our pushing, but to our alignment? What if the more we surrender, the more we actually make space for what truly belongs to us? In today's episode, we're going to explore what it means to stop forcing and to start trusting, to stop micromanaging every detail and start moving in rhythm with something greater than ourselves. Because maybe, just maybe, everything we've been struggling to achieve is already on its way. If only we'd stop blocking the path. Have you ever tried to hold water in your fist? The harder you squeeze, the more it slips away. But if you open your hand, the water rests there, still and calm. That's what surrender looks like. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things from the right energy. It's about letting your effort be rooted in clarity, not desperation. Because the truth is, control often comes from fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of being left behind. But fear clouds your vision. It makes you reactive, restless, rigid. Surrender, on the other hand, is an act of courage. It says, I may not know exactly how this will unfold, but I trust that I'm not lost. I trust there is a current guiding me, even when I can't see it yet. And when we start to live that way, less from ego, more from essence, something shifts. Doors that felt closed begin to open, not because we force them, but because we stop standing in the way. So let me ask you gently, where in your life are you trying too hard to control something? What would happen if just for today you loosened your grip, not because you're giving up, but because you're giving life room to breathe? This episode is about that space. It's about the power of surrender, not as weakness, but as wisdom, not as passivity, but as participation with the flow of things. Because life isn't always asking you to push harder. Sometimes it's simply asking you to get out of the way. Part 1. The Trap of Control and the Power of Surrender. Have you ever tried so hard to make something happen, only to feel like the harder you push, the further it drifts away? It's one of life's strangest contradictions. We're told that if we want something, we need to go after it, relentlessly, obsessively. But sometimes the very act of chasing becomes the reason we can't catch it. It's not that effort is wrong. It's the energy behind the effort that matters. When we act from fear, from pressure, from the belief that if I don't control this, everything will fall apart, we unknowingly create resistance. The more we force, the more stuck we become. And yet, when we shift from force to flow, something softens. We stop trying to bend life into our blueprint, and we begin to notice how life was already trying to meet us in its own time, in its own way. Here's the thing. Surrender is not giving up. It's not waving the white flag and disappearing from the game. Surrender is active openness. It's choosing to release the illusion of control while still showing up fully, with clarity, with care, with presence. It's like holding out your hand. Imagine a clenched fist. It's tight, tense, powerful, but it can't receive. It's too busy gripping. Now imagine that same hand open, relaxed, steady. That's when it becomes capable of receiving, of holding, of feeling. That's the posture of surrender. Not passive, just available. Let me share a story. There was an artist named Sarah. For years, she did everything the right way. She networked, promoted, posted daily, churned out new pieces like clockwork. She wanted success so badly, she treated her passion like a project to manage. But the more she pushed, the more drained she became. Her art started feeling heavy, like work without wonder. Eventually, she burned out, not dramatically, just quietly tired of trying so hard. So she let go. She stopped strategizing, stopped chasing, and she went back to painting the way she used to, as a form of expression, not expectation. Just her, the canvas, and the joy of creating something honest. And something unexpected happened. A gallery owner stumbled upon one of her pieces, felt its raw beauty, and offered her a solo show. That single opportunity opened doors she'd been knocking on for years, but they only opened after she stopped forcing them. That's the strange and beautiful thing about surrender. It doesn't mean we stop moving. It means we move from alignment, not anxiety. We create, act, and show up, not because we're desperate to control the outcome, but because it feels true. So I'll ask you gently, where in your life are you gripping too tightly? What dream, relationship, or goal are you trying so hard to control that it can't breathe? Sometimes what we think is commitment is really just fear wearing a disciplined mask. Surrender invites us to loosen that grip, to create space for life to surprise us, to trust that our energy is more magnetic when it comes from peace, not panic. Because real power doesn't come from control. It comes from presence, from the quiet confidence that says, I'm here, I'm ready, and I don't need to force what's meant to flow. And over time, when you live this way, you don't just feel more free, you become more free, more grounded, more open, more alive. Part 2, resistance and fear. Have you ever noticed that right before something meaningful begins, something inside you pulls back? You sit down to write and suddenly feel the need to clean the entire kitchen. You open your laptop to start that dream project and somehow end up scrolling social media for an hour. You finally commit to making a change, and then your mind floods with doubts, what ifs, and excuses. That's not laziness. That's not a lack of willpower. That is resistance. And here's the truth most people miss. Resistance doesn't show up when nothing matters. It shows up when something truly does. It's like an invisible wall that appears right when we're getting close to the edge of something real, something vulnerable, something that might actually change us. And resistance wears many disguises. It can look like procrastination. It can sound like your inner critic whispering, "You're not ready." It can feel like exhaustion, right when you're about to begin something that deeply matters to you. It's tricky because it often hides in plain sight. We justify it with logic. I need to prepare more. It's not the right time. Or I'll start tomorrow. But deep down, we know this isn't about timing or skill. It's about fear. Fear of failure. Fear of being judged. Fear that we'll pour our hearts into something and still come up short. I want to tell you a story about Adam, a writer with a powerful voice, big ideas, and a dream to publish his first novel. He had the time, the talent, and the tools. But every time he sat down to write, his mind would spiral. What if it's bad? What if no one cares? What if I give everything and it still isn't enough. So instead of writing, Adam stayed busy. He organized bookshelves, reread old drafts, cleaned his desk again. He wasn't lazy, he was scared. And resistance had convinced him that staying busy was safer than being brave. But here's the turning point. One day, instead of trying to beat resistance, Adam chose to sit with it. He asked himself, what am I really afraid of? And instead of judging the fear, he listened to it. He didn't wait for the fear to disappear. He just took one small step forward anyway, with the fear, not against it. That's what surrender looks like in the face of resistance. It's not a fight, it's a conversation. It's the quiet courage to say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm still going to move. If you're feeling stuck right now, creatively, emotionally, professionally, I invite you to pause and ask, what is this resistance trying to protect me from? What belief is hiding beneath this fear? Maybe you've been taught that success will cost you love, or that failure will confirm your worst doubts. Maybe you fear that if you give it your all and it's not enough, you'll be left with nothing. But here's the thing. Those beliefs are stories. They feel real, but they're not fixed. And the moment we bring awareness to them, they begin to lose their grip. You can even write a letter to your resistance. Let that inner voice speak, and then write back, not to argue, but to reassure. You might be surprised by what happens when you stop trying to silence resistance and start understanding it. Because at the end of the day, resistance isn't the enemy. It's a signal, a sign that you're getting close to something that matters, and you don't need to wait until you're fearless to begin. You just need to take one honest step, with your fear beside you, not behind you. That's how you grow, not by overpowering resistance, but by meeting it with presence, patience, and compassion. And in time, you'll notice, resistance doesn't disappear, but it softens. And you get stronger, not in spite of the fear, but because you learn to move through it anyway. Part 3, trusting the unfolding of life. Sometimes life doesn't go according to plan. We try so hard to organize, predict, control. We write 5-year goals, chase milestones, and measure ourselves by how quickly we get there, wherever there is. But deep down, we all know life doesn't follow our calendar. It follows a rhythm of its own, a rhythm we can't always see but can feel when we're quiet enough to listen. And here's where it gets difficult. Trust. Not the kind of trust you talk about in theory, but the kind that asks you to feel okay, even when nothing is certain. The kind that invites you to keep walking, even when the path isn't fully visible. It's not intellectual, it's emotional, vulnerable, often terrifying, because to trust means to let go of needing to know when or how it will all work out. But what if that's exactly when the most important things begin to unfold? Let me share a story with you. Maya was someone who did all the right things. She read the books, listened to the podcasts, built plans upon plans to figure out her life's purpose, but nothing quite landed. Every job felt slightly off. Every path felt like she was trying to walk in someone else's shoes. Eventually, after another plan fell apart, Maya stopped pushing. Not because she gave up, but because she got still. Instead of asking, what should I do next? She began asking, what moves me? She started noticing the quiet moments, the parts of her day that made her feel alive, even if no one else noticed them. And slowly, gently, the answers started to come. Not through logic or pressure, but through small, aligned steps that felt honest. A year later, Maya found herself in work she never would have planned. Yet it felt right. Not because she forced her way into it, but because she allowed herself to unfold into it. That's what trust looks like. It's not passive waiting. It's staying open, It's paying attention to the signs that don't come from the outside world, but from within you. Because the universe doesn't work on deadlines. It doesn't reward pressure. It responds to presence, to alignment, to readiness. And sometimes the reason things haven't arrived yet is not because you've done something wrong, but because life is still shaping you into the person who's ready to receive them. I know that's hard to hear when you're in the waiting. I know how tempting it is to grab the steering wheel, to rush, to demand answers. But growth doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like quiet preparation. So I invite you to ask yourself, where are you forcing a timeline that no longer serves you? What would it feel like to trust that you're not falling behind? You're simply arriving on time. By a clock you can't see. We don't have to abandon our dreams. We just need to hold them differently. Not like weights that measure our worth, but like seeds that bloom when the season is right. And in the meantime, our work is to stay open, stay honest, stay grounded. Because when you're in alignment, things move quickly. Not because you chased harder, but because you became who you needed to be for the moment to arrive. So if you're in that space, uncertain, waiting, wondering, know this: you're not stuck. You're not lost. You're simply unfolding. And that is more than enough. Part 4, the discipline of allowing. We live in a world that rewards hustle. Move faster, do more, fix everything. We've been conditioned to believe that success comes only from constant action, constant control, and anything less, that's laziness, that's weakness, that's falling behind. But what if that belief is the very thing keeping us stuck? What if allowing, not forcing, is one of the most powerful disciplines we can practice? Let me be clear. Allowing is not about passivity. It's not about sitting back and hoping life will magically sort itself out. It's not avoiding responsibility or giving up on your dreams. Allowing is a form of strength. It's the strength to pause instead of panic. It's the wisdom to listen before reacting. It's the discipline to hold space, not because you're doing nothing, but because you're doing something far more powerful. You're staying present. And in a culture obsessed with control, presence is a radical act, because most of us confuse control with success. We think that if we micromanage every outcome, every conversation, every detail, we'll feel safe. But all that tension, all that gripping, it doesn't bring peace. It brings anxiety, exhaustion, disconnection. True strength doesn't come from force. It comes from knowing when to act and when to allow. Look at nature. A tree doesn't rush to grow. It doesn't panic because it's not blooming fast enough. It trusts the soil, the seasons, the sunlight. It knows that stillness is not wasted time. It's where roots go deep. And maybe we're the same. Maybe we don't need more hustle. Maybe we need more space. More space to hear ourselves think, to reconnect with what matters, to breathe. Instead of asking, what more can I do? What if you asked, what can I let go of? Can you let go of the urge to fix everything right now? Can you release the pressure to have it all figured out today? Can you trust that some problems don't need immediate solutions, just a little room to settle? This doesn't mean you stop showing up. It means you show up differently, with clarity, with calm, with courage that isn't loud but steady. And in that space, something powerful happens. You begin to notice what actually needs your attention and what's just noise. You begin to respond, not react. You begin to feel less like you're drowning in your life and more like you're dancing with it. Let me ask you this. Where in your life are you confusing action with alignment? Where are you rushing to solve things that might be asking for stillness instead? This is not easy. It goes against everything we've been taught. But allowing isn't weakness, it's mastery. It takes far more courage to trust the timing of your life than to try and force it into shape. It takes emotional maturity to say, I don't have to control this right now. I can let it unfold. That's not losing control. That's gaining trust in yourself, in life, in the deeper rhythm that's always been there. If only we'd slow down long enough to hear it. So today, instead of pushing harder, try softening. Instead of rushing into more, try letting go of just one thing. And notice what begins to shift. Because in that space of allowing, your life doesn't fall apart. It starts to come together, quietly, patiently, beautifully. And over time, you don't just feel more peaceful, you become more powerful, not by controlling everything, but by learning you don't have to. Part 5. The weight of expectations. They rarely make noise, but they weigh so much. They creep into our lives quietly, shaping how we think we should feel, where we should be by now, and how success is supposed to look. And without even realizing it, we begin carrying the silent pressure of a life scripted by fear and control. We expect ourselves to have it all figured out by 30. We expect others to respond how we would. We expect that if we work hard enough, life should unfold exactly as planned. But here's the truth. Expectations are often less about vision and more about fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of missing out, fear of being seen as falling behind. And those fears don't just stay in your mind. They build tension in your body, create rigid timelines in your heart, and slowly disconnect you from the natural flow of life. Because life, real, beautiful, unpredictable life, doesn't run on your schedule. It's not interested in checking off your milestones on time. It's unfolding in its own way, on its own terms. And when your expectations clash with that rhythm, the result is always the same: disappointment. Not because life failed you, but because it didn't match the mental script you wrote without even realizing it. So many of us confuse high standards with healthy living. But holding expectations too tightly is like gripping sand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring differently. It's choosing peace over pressure. It's choosing presence over perfection. Imagine this shift. Instead of obsessing over the outcome, what if you devoted yourself to the process? Instead of asking, why isn't this happening yet? You asked, how fully am I showing up today? It's a subtle change, but it frees you. It allows you to experience life as it is, not just as you planned it. Because real joy isn't found in everything going your way. It's found in your ability to stay grounded even when it doesn't. Think about the last time you felt deeply disappointed. Was it truly because of what happened or because of what you expected to happen? So much of our pain isn't caused by reality. It's caused by the rigid frame we tried to force around it. But the good news? Frames can be adjusted, timelines can be released, and peace can be reclaimed. When you surrender your expectations, you make space for life to surprise you. You become more open, more flexible, more available to what's actually unfolding rather than what should be happening. You don't need to lower your dreams. You just need to hold them with softer hands. So ask yourself gently, what expectations am I carrying that no longer serve me? What part of my timeline is driven more by fear than truth? And what might happen if I let go? Not of the dream, but of the pressure. When you make peace with the pace of your life, something amazing happens. You stop measuring yourself against imaginary deadlines. You stop tying your worth to outcomes you can't fully control. You begin to experience the quiet confidence of someone who trusts that they're exactly where they need to be. Not because everything is perfect, but because they've finally stopped demanding it to be. And over time, that shift brings more than peace. It brings clarity. It brings presence. It brings freedom, the kind that lets you live fully in this moment, no longer trapped by what was supposed to happen, but grounded in what is. Part 6. Stillness and Inner Presence. In a world that moves fast, where every moment feels like a deadline, every silence feels awkward, and every pause seems like a waste, stillness has become a rare and radical act. But here's the quiet truth. Stillness isn't empty. It's full, full of clarity, full of wisdom, full of the kind of knowing that only reveals itself when everything else quiets down. You see, we often think of stillness as the absence of doing, but what if it's the beginning of truly being? When you sit still, not to escape, not to plan, but just to be, you start to notice something profound. The noise in your mind begins to settle. The urge to fix, to solve, to race ahead starts to soften, and beneath it all, there's a calm that was there the whole time, just waiting for you to return. That's the power of presence. And one of the most accessible ways to touch it is through something incredibly simple. Awareness. Not hours of meditation, not a spiritual retreat. Just a few minutes, 5, maybe even 3, of intentional stillness. Right where you are. Close your eyes. Feel your breath move in and out. Not to change it, just to notice it. When thoughts come, and they will, don't chase them. Let them pass like clouds across the sky. This isn't about achieving some mystical state. It's about reminding yourself, I am here, right now. And that's enough. Because here's what often goes unnoticed. So much of our tension isn't caused by the world around us. It's caused by our resistance to this moment. We think we have to fix something first, solve everything, or become someone else before we can feel peace. But peace doesn't arrive when life becomes perfect. It arrives when we stop arguing with what is. Stillness is where surrender becomes real. Not as a lofty idea, but as a practice. A way of living that says, I don't need to chase this moment. I just need to meet it. And yes, your mind will resist it at first. It will tell you you're wasting time, that you're falling behind, that you should be doing something productive. But those thoughts aren't the truth. They're habits formed in a culture that glorifies exhaustion and calls it success. You don't have to listen to that noise forever. You can choose something softer, something wiser. You can choose presence. Even just 5 minutes a day can shift your entire relationship with yourself. 5 minutes of quiet, 5 minutes of breath, 5 minutes of remembering that you're not a machine. You're a living, breathing being who deserves space to just be. And the more often you return to that stillness, the more natural surrender becomes. Not as an escape, but as an empowered way of responding to life. Not from urgency, but from wisdom. Not from judgment, but from compassion. Because when you learn to be still with yourself, you start to hear what's underneath the noise. You begin to feel your truth, not the one shaped by pressure, but the one whispered by presence. So let me ask you gently, when was the last time you were truly still? Not numbing out, not zoning out, but tuning in, with nothing to fix, nothing to prove, and nowhere to rush. If it's been a while, that's okay. Start with a breath. Start with a moment. Start now. Because in that stillness, you don't disappear. You come home. Part 7. The illusion of control. Control feels powerful, doesn't it? Planning every detail, predicting every outcome, making sure nothing slips through the cracks. It gives us the illusion that we're safe, that we're doing things right, that life won't catch us off guard. But here's the quiet truth most of us don't talk about. Control doesn't come from power. It comes from fear. The fear of uncertainty, the fear of loss, the fear that if we let go, even for a moment, everything will fall apart. So we cling. We micromanage our days, our emotions, our relationships. We hold on tight, not because we're strong, but because we're scared. And ironically, the tighter we grip, the more life slips through our fingers. We weren't taught this. We were taught that success comes from control, that being in charge means being in control of everything and everyone. But control is rigid, and life is not. Life bends, life flows, life surprises. So when we try to dominate it with force, we burn out. Not because we're weak, but because we're using the wrong kind of strength. Real strength isn't loud. It's responsive. It's the ability to pause before reacting, to listen instead of dictate, to adapt rather than dominate. It's not about letting life walk all over you. It's about trusting yourself to meet what comes with presence, not panic. Because here's the deeper shift. You are not your outcomes. You are not your performance. You are not your perfectly planned schedule or your checked off goals. You are your awareness. You are the one who notices, the one who can shift, the one who can choose again. That's where your power really lives, not in controlling what happens, but in how you respond to what happens. And when you start living from that space, something changes. Your stress softens. Your relationships breathe. Your self-worth stops swinging with every win or setback. You stop internalizing every failure. You stop over-identifying with every success. You begin to see your life not as a project to manage, but as a process to move with. Think about it. Where in your life are you gripping too tightly? Where has control become a cage disguised as safety? Maybe it's in your work, where you feel like everything will fall apart unless you manage every detail. Maybe it's in your relationships, where you try to protect love by shaping how others show up. Maybe it's in your self-image, where you only feel okay when things are going your way. Whatever it is, let me ask you gently. What would it feel like to soften just a little? What might shift if you gave yourself permission to release the pressure, to stop holding everything so tightly? Because letting go doesn't mean you lose power. It means you regain freedom. The freedom to move with life instead of against it. The freedom to adapt when plans change. The freedom to rest without guilt. The freedom to show up. Not because you're in control, but because you're connected. That's real power. The kind that listens before it speaks. The kind that bends without breaking. The kind that says, I am not here to conquer life. I'm here to collaborate with it. And when you live from that place, not forcing, but flowing, you don't just feel lighter. You become more resilient, more grounded, more at peace. Not because you controlled everything, but because you finally realized you didn't need to. Part 8, the paradox of receiving. It's strange, isn't it? Sometimes the moment you stop needing something is the moment it begins to appear. You let go, not out of apathy, but out of exhaustion. You stop chasing, not because you don't care, but because you're tired of running in circles. And then without warning, life softens. Something shifts. Something arrives. That's the paradox of receiving. It's not that effort is bad, but grasping, holding on too tightly, has a way of pushing things away. It clouds your energy. It sends the message that you're not whole until you have that thing. And when that belief takes over, Desire quietly transforms into desperation. You stop wanting from a place of fullness and start needing from a place of lack. So you chase love, thinking it will make you feel enough. You hustle for success, hoping it will silence your inner doubt. You force timelines, hoping certainty will quiet your fear. But none of it truly satisfies, because it's not what we're chasing that drains us. It's the energy behind the chase. There's a big difference between moving towards something with inspiration and clinging to it with fear. Desire is healthy. It's human. But when we attach our identity to the outcome, we forget who we are without it. Let me offer you a gentle shift. What if receiving isn't about working harder? What if it's about softening your grip? What if the thing you want isn't hiding from you? It's simply waiting for you to stop blocking the path with all your tension? Think about it. Have you ever been around someone who's calm, grounded, and fully present? They don't beg for attention. They don't demand energy. They attract because their presence is open and alive. That's the energy of receiving. It's the moment you stop gripping so tightly and let things come as they are. When you shift from grasping to presence, life starts to respond differently. People notice. Opportunities flow more naturally. You begin to move with life, not against it. And the beautiful part? You don't have to give up your dreams. You just stop letting them control you. You can want love, success, clarity, growth, without needing them to validate your worth. You can dream big, but walk lightly. You can act boldly, but rest deeply. You can desire fully, but release the desperation that once came with it. Here's a question worth asking. What would it feel like to want something deeply without needing it to prove you're enough? Because the moment you make that shift, you step into a different kind of freedom. You begin to trust that what's meant for you doesn't require begging. You begin to realize that aligned things don't arrive through pressure, they arrive through readiness. And readiness isn't about being perfect. It's about being open, being in a place where your energy, your values, your presence can truly hold what's coming. So maybe the next step isn't pushing harder. Maybe it's stepping back and asking, am I trying to force what's meant to flow? And if so, what would it look like to soften, to trust that letting go doesn't push it away, but invites it in? Over time, you'll see this more clearly. Letting go isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of receiving what was always trying to reach you, not because you demanded it, but because you were finally still enough to welcome it. Part 9. Surrender in relationships. It's a hard truth to admit, but sometimes the people we try hardest to control are the ones we love the most. We don't always mean to do it. We say it's because we care. We want them to be safe, to make good choices, to meet us emotionally. But underneath that desire is often something quieter and harder to name. Fear. Fear of being hurt. Fear of losing the connection. Fear that if they don't act the way we need them to, we won't feel okay. So we try to shape them, gently at first. We drop hints. We correct. We withhold. We build expectations they didn't agree to. And slowly, without realizing it, we begin replacing love with control. But here's what surrender in relationships teaches us. Real love is not control. Real love is freedom. Freedom to be fully oneself. Freedom to grow at one's own pace. Freedom to express truth, even when that truth is inconvenient or uncomfortable. And that kind of love, it requires a different kind of courage. It's easy to love someone when they behave how we want. It's much harder to love them as they are. Not as a project, but as a person. To surrender in love doesn't mean giving up or giving in. It means letting go of the illusion that closeness depends on control. It's saying, I trust that your truth matters just as much as mine, even if it challenges me, even if it makes me stretch, even if it hurts a little. That shift, though subtle, can transform everything. Because when people feel safe to be themselves, something powerful happens. They start showing up more honestly. Conversations become less about blame and more about understanding. You stop trying to fix them and start listening to them. You move from trying to win to trying to connect. Think about this. Have you ever loved someone so much that you wanted to protect them from their own decisions? Did that protection bring you closer, or did it build quiet resentment over time? Because love that pressures, corrects, or manipulates, even with good intentions, eventually creates distance. But love that gives space, that listens, that honors the other person's experience without trying to rewrite it, that kind of love becomes magnetic. Not because it demands, but because it respects. Of course, surrender doesn't mean tolerating harm. It doesn't mean abandoning your own needs or staying silent when things feel wrong. Healthy boundaries and honest expression are part of love too. But there's a line between expressing a need and trying to control the outcome, between asking for clarity and trying to manage someone's emotions, between loving someone for who they are and quietly resenting them for not becoming who you hoped they'd be. Surrender is the practice of stepping back without stepping away. It's the willingness to let others grow in their own way, even when that growth challenges you to stretch too. And strangely enough, the more space we give, the more real the relationship becomes. It becomes rooted in presence, not performance, in trust, not tension, in shared humanity, not silent expectations. So maybe take a moment to reflect. Where in your relationships are you holding too tightly? Where are you trying to guide someone instead of meeting them where they already are? What would happen, not if you gave up on them, but if you gave up the pressure? Because love doesn't have to be a power struggle. It can be a partnership, one built not on control, but on conscious surrender. And in that surrender, we find something rare, the kind of connection that grows not because we shape it, but because we trust it. Part 10, Returning to the Present. It's easy to get lost in time. We replay conversations from the past. We fast forward into a future we can't predict. We live in what ifs and what should have beens. And somehow, the only place where life is actually happening, the present moment, is the one we visit the least. But here's something worth remembering. The present isn't just a place we pass through. It's the only place we truly have, right now. This breath, this heartbeat, this moment, imperfect, unfiltered, real, is the only moment that's alive. Everything else is a memory or a projection. And yet, we spend so much of our energy elsewhere. We scroll while thinking about tomorrow. We eat while replaying yesterday. We try to sleep while mentally solving problems that haven't even happened. But here's the thing. You can't feel peace in a moment you're not present for. You can't find clarity while running through mental tunnels. You can't heal in the past, and you can't control the future. You can only come home to now. Presence isn't about perfection. It doesn't mean you stop dreaming or reflecting. It means you stop resisting what is. It means you meet life here instead of always reaching for somewhere else. Because here, right now, is where calm lives. It's where truth becomes clear. It's where resilience is built, not through force, but through witnessing. You begin to realize that most of your stress doesn't come from the moment itself. It comes from your mind's refusal to enter it. So I invite you to ask yourself something simple. Where am I mentally? Are you here or are you already living in tomorrow's problems? Are you grounded or drifting through yesterday's wounds? And if you're not here, that's okay. You can always return. Come back to your breath. Come back to your body. Come back to this moment, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Even in the uncomfortable moments, there's something steady underneath, a kind of stillness that says, you are safe to be here. That's what surrender looks like on the deepest level, not surrendering to fate or giving up on effort, but surrendering to now, to the truth of what is, to the softness of what's present, to the permission to stop chasing and just be. And when you make that shift, life starts to feel different. Not because the circumstances change, but because you do. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop rushing through everything and start absorbing the beauty in the little things, the sound of your breath, the feeling of your feet on the ground, the quiet realization that this moment is enough. Because the more you return to the now, the less you need everything to go your way. You stop waiting for life to align perfectly in order to feel at peace. Instead, you begin to bring peace to whatever life hands you. So I ask you gently, can you let this moment be enough? Can you allow yourself to be fully here, even if just for now? Because when you do, you'll find something you may have been missing all along. Yourself, not the version of you shaped by expectations, regrets, or pressure, but the version that's simply present, aware, grounded, alive. Coming back to the present isn't a one-time thing. It's a practice, a quiet homecoming you choose, again and again. And each time you return, you come home to a life that doesn't need to be perfect, only real. Surrender as true strength. Surrender, it's a word that's often misunderstood. We hear it and think of defeat, of weakness, of giving up the fight. But real surrender, the kind that transforms us, has nothing to do with giving up. It has everything to do with tuning in. It's choosing to stop wrestling with life and start listening to it. It's shifting from control to clarity, from pressure to presence, from noise to alignment. True surrender is not a retreat. It's a return to yourself, to your breath, to your inner knowing, to what's actually happening beneath all the mental noise. Because here's the truth. Peace doesn't come from control. It never has. Control may create short-term comfort. It may help you feel organized, prepared, safe, but lasting peace, the kind that stays with you through changes, through challenges, through the unknown, comes from clarity. Clarity about who you are, clarity about what matters, clarity about what's worth holding on to, and what you're finally ready to release. So let me ask you, gently, honestly, what are you being asked to let go of? Is it a timeline that's no longer serving you? A version of yourself you've outgrown? A belief that you need to earn your worth, prove your value, or hold everything together for everyone else? Sometimes surrender is less about dropping everything and more about loosening your grip. You don't need to abandon your goals. You just need to stop forcing them to happen on a schedule designed by fear. You don't need to silence your desires. You just need to uncouple them from desperation. And you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to show up with presence, with openness, with trust. Because surrender isn't a one-time choice. It's not a dramatic turning point you reach and never have to revisit. It's a practice of checking in, of breathing deeper, of asking, am I trying to force this or am I letting it flow? You'll forget. We all do. You'll fall back into control, into fear, into grasping. That's part of being human. But every time you remember and return, that's surrender. That's strength. Strength isn't always loud. It's not always a leap. Sometimes it's the quiet choice to pause before reacting, to soften instead of tighten, to trust even when nothing feels certain. And when you live this way, moment by moment, breath by breath, something changes. Life doesn't feel like a battle to win or a burden to carry. It becomes a conversation, a dance, a collaboration. You stop trying to manage every outcome. You start aligning with the deeper rhythm that's been guiding you all along. So as you move forward from this moment, carry this with you. Surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the deep inner strength that says, I don't need to force what's meant to flow. And in that space, right there, you rediscover your power. Not the power to control everything, but the power to meet whatever comes with clarity, grace, and presence. That's the kind of power no one can take from you because it's not built on fear, it's built on truth.